In today's video, we have multiple massive cooldowns on the way to discuss, as well as big snowstorms in the eastern half of the nation that we need to talk about today. Now, before we get into things, be sure to check out Prestige Weather in the description, pinned comment, and the top right corner of your screen. We do weather consulting for businesses and individuals alike. We do a lot of consulting calls, consulting emails, consulting texts, and we have an exclusive community for you guys for weather consulting. It's all for only $5 a month, and we're actually running a promotion right now for Black Friday. If you put in the code DIRECT at checkout, you will get your first month for only $1. Be sure to check it out today. Now, due to the extreme amount of you that use that promo code, we've gone ahead and extended it one more week, so that is going to go until December 8th. Be sure to use it today. Again, that's code DIRECT to get 80% off your first month. That's going to be only 99 cents. Let's dive into things, and as we take a look at the upcoming pattern, I just want to take us towards tomorrow. We're already going to be seeing a big cool down here in the east. As you can see, we have colder air diving in as we've seen these frequent troughs. The jet stream is doing about this, so definitely a pretty wide and broad trough, but certainly bringing impacts to many different states, both for the south and the northern regions here of the east. And kind of as the opposite here, we're seeing out west this big ridge, and this is called a positive PNA when this happens. And what that does is it causes warm air to surge up the western states, and this really diverts this cold air that would be over Western Canada and causes it to pour to the east. And that's exactly why we're seeing this big cool down. Keep that in mind. We might talk about the PNA throughout this video, so that's going to be a frequent talking point here on this channel. As we reach Tuesday evening, we can see that this ridge is becoming pretty broad. It is moving eastward, which is probably going to spell the end to this cool down here in the east. It is pretty intense though, some deeper cold, and you can see even some mixed showers happening here throughout Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland here, West Virginia, where some flakes are flying as snow is again mixing in. So this is certainly a cooler weather day, as this is kind of the high temperatures. So to be seeing snowfall is indicative of below normal temperatures, of course. As we move this towards Wednesday afternoon, what we see is this trough becomes much deeper as the ridge has now become very broad, and this trough is more narrow in nature, and this is causing it to surge a lot further south. We even see snowfall up and down this Appalachian mountain range here, so certainly a very interesting scenario. We also see a pretty big storm system here for the northwest, where the lower elevation areas, as per normal, is seeing rainfall, and a lot of the higher elevation areas out there in the west, including the Cascades and Sierra Nevadas, are seeing primarily snowfall. Let's keep going. And as we take a look here at Thursday, November 7th, we see that this is expanding and really becoming a primarily wintry event here. Very, very interesting to say the least. We're seeing states like Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado see snowfall out there. So definitely a heavier snowfall event. And by Friday, it does kind of weaken up a bit. We still see some lingering flurries and even snow showers around here for the northwest, as now we see warm air surging for the east. So the jet stream is doing the opposite here. What we're seeing is a trough in the west, ridge in the east type pattern, so certainly things have flipped. It's been a pretty progressive pattern, and what I mean by that is the troughs and ridges aren't really staying in the same spots very long at all. They're constantly revolving and moving very, very quickly. We can see either of these types of patterns. It just depends. I mean, sometimes they last a lot longer and can stay in place. And other times, like the pattern we find ourselves in here, we see them really, really want to move and be very progressive. So that's what I mean when I say we're in a very progressive pattern right now. As we keep going, we can move this towards Saturday evening, and what we see happening is a big time trough is obviously still over the western states here, so there's plenty of cold air to go around. We do see a cold front kind of developing there on the front of that trough, and we even see some warm air trying to push up the west coast. This is all going to cause everything to kind of move eastward over time. Keep that in mind. And as we move towards Sunday afternoon, we can see things are very much so moving eastward. I want you to pay attention to this though, because we see a large storm develop along this frontal boundary. So we see things kind of just rainy here by the time we're taking a look at about 8 p.m. here on Saturday, December 9th, better yet. And as we move towards the afternoon hours of Sunday, December 10th, we see a low pressure system develop there over Tennessee along that cold front 996. And look at all of this Gulf moisture that is just pouring into this storm. This is going to cause this to be a very intense and very widespread storm system. We already see snowfall developing in some very interesting places like Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Michigan here. This is a very, very interesting storm system so far. Definitely looking to be a pretty major one. If it does happen this way, keep in mind this is still 7 days out, so we want to take this with a grain of salt. But we are seeing a lot of the models, including both the ensemble models, showing a storm system in these areas, which I'll show you towards the end of the video. In the longer range, like 5, 7, 10 days out, it's very important to use the ensemble models. I'll tell you guys more about that in just a little bit. I want to take us towards the overnight hour though, and this is at about 2 a.m. on Monday, December 11th, and we see tons of snowfall on the very western front of this storm. We're seeing areas like Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan seeing very heavy snowfall as a result of this system. Certainly a very, very intense storm. It is a 978 millibar low pressure center there over the borders of New York and Pennsylvania, kind of near Erie, Pennsylvania area. On the eastern areas here for the East Coast, we are seeing very intense rainfall as a result of this, maybe even thunderstorms, as there is some much more warm and humid air out ahead of this system. With the very intense cold air moving in behind, that is kind of what you expect. That's classic wintertime thunderstorm setup here for the eastern states when we see that surge of warmth and humidity followed by really, really deep cold air moving in with an intense frontal boundary in between. So we will be watching for that, of course. By the time we're reaching Monday afternoon here, we see a 968 millibar low pressure center there developing over Canada. Snowfall pouring in behind all of this for areas in Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and New York. Very, very interesting. By the way, jet stream pattern, let's get a little update on this. We see a deep trough as a result of this behind that cold front, so we see a lot of cold air pouring in to the east once again. So when I said we're expecting some big cool downs, this is big cool down number 2 here. Again, warmer air trending in for the west, which is indicative of that positive PNA that I was telling you guys about earlier. Let's keep going. We might get all the way to Tuesday afternoon here, and we will. And we do see actually a very wintry type of storm here, which it is meteorological winter as of December 1st, but here on December 12th, what we're taking a look at here, we see a clipper system developing, bringing moderate to heavy snowfall in Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, South Dakota. Keep in mind, these particular types of storm systems are usually very quick moving and very progressive. So accumulation is usually very light because the amount of snowfall is not very long. It's more of a, 4 to 8, maybe 10 hour type event. So usually you're looking at under 10 inches, even in the bullseye of these types of storms. That's not always the case, but that's typically what you're looking at. Let's go ahead and take a look at the GFS. I want to just show you guys that big storm that we see, because it is interesting to note that we get great agreement here on the GFS. It's a much weaker storm, but we see the location is very similar, and the snowfall here is also very similar to that European model. I want to keep going because we do see this one actually deepen quite a bit in pressure. It's down to a 987, so a good 10 millibars weaker than what we saw in that European model, but you can't help but notice that the location is very similar, and we do have heavier snowfall here throughout the Ohio Valley as a result of that storm system. Now again, we will take a look at the ensemble models in just a moment. I do want to show you guys the total precipitation here. We expect above average amounts here throughout the Northwest, and then also a majority of the eastern states as we see that big storm system move through, followed by that stronger cold front. Total snowfall according to the European model looks like this. We see heavy snowfall throughout the Rockies and Cascades, as again we've been stuck in a stormy pattern. That looks to continue at least over the next couple of weeks. And then here is that bigger snowstorm that we see throughout the Ohio Valley there. Bullseye of about 6 to 10, maybe 10 to 20 there near the Cleveland area. So certainly a heavier plowable snowfall event is in the mix for a possibility here to happen over the next 10 days there in Ohio and Indiana. Let's take a look at the GFS models total snowfall. Everything out west is the same, but we do see, again, this heavier corridor of snowfall for Indiana, Michigan here as well on the GFS model, and then Ohio. We do see a little bit more here on the GFS model where we do get plenty of those pinks, again, indicative of 10 to 20 inches. So we see that there for Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan as a result of that more major snowstorm. Now again, we do see support here from our ensemble models as we're seeing heavier totals here throughout the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes. That's probably due to that storm that these models are expecting. Same thing on the GEFS model, which is the GFS ensemble model. We see plenty of snowfall within that area over the next couple of weeks. Certainly indicative of some support for this type of a snowfall event to occur when our models were showing it. So we're going to be watching this over the coming days. I think it's certainly going to be something that is interesting to track. Be sure to subscribe. We do upload every single day, and we're going to keep you guys up to date with this storm, of course. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.